When we last left Gohan, Krillin, Yamcha, Tarble, and Vegeta, which was 8 months ago, they had summoned Porunga, revived Piccolo, and brought him to Namek. Then, Vegeta had interrupted them, but before a third wish could be made, Frieza showed up, and then Guru died. Frieza gives his typical spiel about how he's going to kill them slowly, and we'll see how this fight plays out right now. Frieza begins the fight in his first form, and manages to break even with Vegeta like in the original, before he is blindsided by a kick from Tarble, who is only slightly weaker than his older brother. Frieza's hand hovered over the spot where he'd been hit. It had actually stung a little. To think these two had gotten so much stronger in such a short period. He didn't like his chances against the both of them in his first form, so he decided to call upon his second, a tactic that would prove effective as the tables swiftly turned. He was focused on the pair he was fighting, so Krillin is spared for the time being. As for the two Saiyans, they aren't so lucky. He begins to dominate the brothers. It's all they can do to keep themselves from being killed. I'm impressed, you two. You're like little flies that I just can't swat. You're doing better than I'd expect from a pair of monkeys. Before he had a chance to say anything else, Frieza was cut off by a ball of ki slamming into the back of his head. It didn't hurt much, but it was enough to annoy him. He turned to face the source of the attack, and saw the man he'd maimed earlier, but he didn't know how he was still standing. Before he had a chance to make a move, however, the blast circled back and hit him again. It was like an insect sting. It didn't do much damage, but it still hurt a bit. And it was also getting him quite angry. He charged Yamcha, who immediately took off in the other direction. You see, they hadn't just been standing around while Tarble and Vegeta kept Frieza busy. The Earthlings had come up with a plan. Krillin took off after Frieza and Yamcha, but he was careful to move quietly. This hinged on him not being seen. Frieza hit Yamcha with a vicious punch to the stomach, bringing the former bandit to his knees. Any last words, human? 2, actually. Solar Flare! With that, Frieza was blinded and Krillin took his shot with the Destructo Disc. He was aiming for his head, but his aim was off due to the light, and instead he only managed to sever one of his horns. The newly asymmetrical tyrant doubled over in pain as the pair of humans used the moment of distraction to run. They'd hurt him, sure, but it wasn't fatal, and now he knew to watch out for Krillin's Kienzon. Before he could pursue the pair further, he was down by a kick from a newcomer, Piccolo, fresh from fusing with Nail. He'd seen what Yamcha and Krillin had done, and he was honestly a little impressed they'd managed it. Saiyans and Earthlings alike watched in amazement as Piccolo tossed Frieza around like he was made of paper. Now the Emperor was on the back foot, and Piccolo seemed to be targeting the injury the Earthlings had inflicted. Frieza fired a blast towards Gohan, Krillin, and Yamcha, counting on Piccolo to move to block it to afford himself some breathing room. His gamble would pay off, as while the Namekian was busy protecting the Earthlings, he was able to transform into his third form. I really didn't expect to have to use this form. Congratulations, Namekian. The transformation turned the flow of the battle, and Piccolo quickly lost the advantage he had held over Frieza, even with the assistance of Gohan, Krillin, and Tarble. Frieza grabbed Tarble by the throat and blasted a hole through his chest before tossing him to the ground. Thankfully, Dende wasn't too far away, and since Tarble hadn't harmed any Namekians, he had no reservations about healing him. While this was going on, Vegeta was talking Yamcha through his plan of almost killing him, which Yamcha doesn't really get, but decides to go along with it because, well, he doesn't really like Vegeta much. He summons all the energy he can muster and blasts a hole through Vegeta's chest. Oh, is that one trying to switch sides? I suppose I could do worse for henchmen. Piccolo is barely alive by the time Frieza is done with him, and the Emperor turns his attention to Gohan, but is sent flying by a kick from the newly healed Tarble. Given the Zenkai and the boost from Guru, I think Tarble reaching a power level of 2.2 million works. Slightly stronger than Vegeta was in his fight with Frieza, but not enough to make too huge a difference. Frieza weighs his options before deciding to resort to his final form. These Saiyans were getting stronger as the fight went on, so he needs to focus on killing them while he still can. Dende heals Piccolo and, reluctantly, Vegeta, before becoming the first victim of Frieza's final form. He's stronger than any of them individually, even heavily suppressed like this, but the combination of the royal siblings does prove a slight challenge for him. Well, kind of. He's only using 4% of his power. While it's not a totally one-sided fight, it becomes evident quickly that the two of them are losing, while Frieza himself was barely trying. Every time the pair thought they had an opportunity, he quickly punished them for even thinking of trying it. He grabbed the brothers by the face and dragged both of them through the dirt before throwing Vegeta at Tarble like a piece of trash. I have to say, I expected more from you two. 2 against 1, and you still can't win. Shut the hell up, Vegeta snarled, beginning to charge a blast. We'll show you the power of the Saiyan race! The brothers fired a combined blast at Frieza, pouring every bit of their energy into the attack, but he simply deflected the blast with minimal effort. Vegeta could hardly believe what had happened, but he didn't have time to think about it as Frieza swiftly flew behind him and knocked him to the ground below, followed swiftly by his brother, who kind of awkwardly landed on top of Vegeta. The two princes dragged themselves to their feet, and Frieza began to blast the pair with finger beams, none of which did much damage by themselves, but they hurt enough to keep the pair pinned down or risk death by 1,000 cuts. After a few minutes of this, Frieza seemed to be done toying with them. He began to charge a blast to finish the pair off, but the attack was knocked off course by a blast from seemingly nowhere. It took Frieza a moment to spot the source of the attack, another Saiyan, though he didn't seem much like Tarble or Vegeta. Vegeta goes on about how Goku is the Saiyan destined to defeat Frieza before a blast sends him to the other world. Tarble doesn't take this well. His relationship with his brother wasn't the best, but Vegeta was still the only family he had, so to see him dispatched so callously was more than he could bear. His conflicted emotions gave way to a white-hot fury as something changed within the younger Saiyan. His aura began to glow around him as his power climbed to new heights. Has Tarble become the first Super Saiyan in this story? Well, not quite. Tarble's hair remained black, though he did have the golden aura and his pupils became white. That's right, he attained the false Super Saiyan form Goku used against Slug. Tarble rushed forward and kicked Frieza across the face, sending him flying halfway across the planet. Now, we don't have an official multiplier for the form, but given that it's an incomplete version of Super Saiyan, I'll go with 25 times Tarble's base power of 2.2 million. So he's currently at a power level of 55 million. Considering Frieza still isn't taking things seriously, that is more than enough to challenge him. Goku watched Tarble rush after Frieza, and he was a little unsure what to do. I mean, he wasn't really needed anymore. Frieza still isn't going all out. For all we know, Tarble's new power won't be enough. Get a spirit bomb ready while he's busy. Yamcha yelled from the sidelines. Goku nodded before raising his hands. With luck, they wouldn't need it, but it never hurt to be prepared. How ironic that the runt his father wasn't even sure about keeping as the legendary Super Saiyan. Even post-mortem, King Vegeta proves to be a relentless fool. Frieza's venomous words didn't seem to shake Tarble much. He didn't really care about or remember his father, so what did he care about his opinion of him? I'm going to finish you, like I did your brother. I'll cleanse this universe of your entire family. If you say so. Before Frieza had a chance to say anything else, Tarble punched him across the jaw, before going on the offensive. For a while, Tarble held the advantage, it even looked like he might win. But slowly and surely, as the Emperor powered up, Tarble began to lose his advantage. And once Frieza hit 50%, Tarble realized he couldn't win, regardless of how much power he'd gotten. Frieza wrapped his tail around the Saiyan's neck and began to punch him using his tail to keep him in place, knocking the false Super Saiyan power out of him. Looks like that old Super Saiyan legend was nothing to worry about after all. You still can't beat me. Before you die, let me tell you something fun. He threw Tarble to the ground before aiming a blast at his head. Even after giving it your all, achieving the legend, you only pushed me to half my full power. Tarble was sure he was about to die, but then nothing happened. He opened his eyes and saw Frieza looking up at something. Where had Kakarot found that much energy? He just about managed to escape the attack himself, but Frieza wasn't so lucky, and the Spirit Bomb hits its target, seemingly killing him. Yamcha helped Tarble to his feet, and Tarble sighed. He was sure not even Frieza would have survived that. Finally, he could take a breather. But not for long. That's right, Tarble didn't damage Frieza enough for the Spirit Bomb to kill him, and he shoots Piccolo. Ouch, and then blows up Krillin. Messy. And as usual, this proves to be his undoing. As with Porunga seemingly gone and Shenron having brought Krillin back once before, as far as Goku knows, Krillin is gone for good. He turned Super Saiyan, the real one this time, before sending Gohan, Piccolo, Yamcha, and Tarble off to the ship. So what's this now? Wasn't Tarble the Super Saiyan? Despite his confusion, Frieza didn't sound worried. He was feeling pretty good about himself considering he'd beaten what he assumed to be the legendary Super Saiyan. The fight goes as you'd expect. It's just Goku versus Frieza, and Tarble isn't present, so nothing changes really. Everyone still gets brought back and then teleported to Earth, and Goku still winds up heading to Yardrat. Tarble elects to stay on Earth for the time being, though he keeps to himself. He'd fought alongside them on Namek, but he could tell they were still guarded around him, despite Yamcha assuring the others that Tarble was a decent guy. He still didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable, so he kept his distance. With the exception of training with Piccolo every now and then, Vegeta wouldn't train with either of them, and Tarble was pretty much the strongest person on Earth, so Piccolo decided it couldn't hurt to stay sharp in case any more threats from beyond the stars arose. Tarble himself put most of his energy into mastering the not-quite Super Saiyan he'd acquired on Namek. For the same reason. The pair were right to be cautious, as Frieza had survived, and King Cold wasn't too happy about having to put his son back together. 2 Super Saiyans, you say, Frieza? Well, perhaps it would be wise to ask your older brother to accompany us. No, Father, that won't be necessary. I was already a league above Tarble, and with these new upgrades, Goku shouldn't be any trouble either. The 2 of us are more than sufficient. For better or for worse, Cold decided to take Frieza's word on that. Really, it was for the best. If things did go south, then at least someone would be here to keep an eye on the Empire. And that's it for now. Yes, I'm including Cooler in the story because I like him. If you have a problem, call the cops. Although Cooler probably won't show up for a little while. I mean, with Frieza and Cold gone, he's not going to risk getting himself killed. He has an empire to run. And from this point onwards, power levels don't matter and they're meaningless, so I can stop thinking about them. Anyway, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.